the role of spirituality. A new paradigm of leadership is needed today. While spirituality requires each person to seek the answers to the meaning of life, leadership requires us to also integrate compassion, ethics, and a more universal outlook towards mankind's problems. The panel will seek to explore this need and the idea that a great spiritual revolution in just one individual can bring about a change in the destiny of all humankind. And now, without further ado, I would like to invite the discussion leaders for the panel onto the stage. May I call upon Dr. Karen Che, human rights activist and professor of divinity. May we have a huge round of applause for Ms. Che, please. Next, we have with us Professor Akhtarul Wase, who is the Professor of Islamic Studies at Jamia Millia Islamia. We also have with us today Rabbi Mika Odenheimer, who is the founder of several BZF. And last but certainly not the least, Ms. Nitya Menon, who is an author and motivational speaker. May we have a huge round of applause for Ms. Menon, please. This panel will be moderated by Dr. A.K. Merchant. Dr. A.K. Merchant is the General Secretary to the Temple of Understanding, India, and also serves as Chairperson, Sarvodaya International Trust, and as Associate Secretary General, Global Warming Reduction Center. He is the author of 3 monographs, and his research papers have been published in national and international dailies, journals, and books. He also serves as spiritual trainer for FOGSI, that is, the Federation of Gynecologists and Obstetrician Society of India. Mr. Merchant, it is an honor to have you here with us today. May I please invite you onto the stage to moderate today's discussion.
Dr. Merchant.
May we once again have a huge round of applause for all our esteemed panelists.
Dear young friends from around the world, distinguished speakers, members of the panel, and the organizers behind this wonderful 3 days of intensive study, learning, and experiencing action, consultation, and reflection in our personal lives on what the future of humanity should be. I'm truly grateful to Mr. Shiv Khemka, to Mrs. Gauri Ishmael, to Mr. Raja Chaudhary, who have given me this opportunity to spend this morning with all of you. I'm also very grateful to have in our midst for today's morning session on spirituality a very distinguished panel. These panel members have come from far and near. We have, as you have heard, Reverend Karen Say, we have Rabbi Mika Odenheimer, we have Professor Akhtarul Wase, we have Madam Nitya Menon, and they will be sharing with us things about their own personal lives as well as how they view the world around them and what has inspired them to provide leadership to their own social milieu, and as well as experience deeply some of the fundamental issues that affect all of us very deeply. So I believe that this morning's discussion will be truly very inspiring and uplifting for all of us. And I'm not introducing too much in detail who they are, because you'll get to know them better as they speak to you. And for my part, I'd like to begin with this small prayer, a prayer that I say every day for the young people, for my own children, and for the betterment of the world through the youth. Oh God, educate these children. These children are the plants of thine orchard, the flowers of thy meadow, the roses of thy garden. Let thy rain fall upon them. Let the sun of reality shine upon them with thy love. Let thy breeze refresh them in order that they may be trained and grow and develop and appear in the utmost beauty. Verily, thou art the giver, thou art the compassionate. This is a prayer from the Baha'i Holy Writings. Our compere forgot to tell me that I'm also the National Trustee of the Baha'i Lotus Temple, an iconic architectural marvel of the city of Delhi and perhaps the whole country of India. So I'm truly grateful to be amidst you, and I hope that we have a very wonderful session this morning. My responsibility as a moderator tells me that I must request each of the members of the panel to take about 6-7 minutes of their time to make their presentations, and then we'd like to devote maximum time for a very productive and fruitful interactive session. So may I begin, Madam, we should go in this order. So may I begin by inviting Reverend Karen Singh. So in order to cut short on the time, I feel that you're better known through the work and the presentations that you make. Either be at your place, if you don't want to use the podium, but if you wish to, it's optional.
How about if I use the podium now so I look tall, and then I'll sit down? Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I woke up, I was worried first that I would wake up late because I'm jet lagged, but I woke up at 6 o'clock this morning, and I often read a poem when I begin, and this is the first one that I've ever read at a conference. This one is the first one that I've ever read because I felt that it spoke to us and the spirit of T. Guelph bringing us together in this conference and in this place. Holy and beautiful, the custom of T. Guelph bringing us together. I did forget my glasses. Holy and beautiful, the custom which brings us together in the presence of the Most High, to face our ideals, to remember our loved ones in absence, to give thanks, to make confession, to offer forgiveness, to be enlightened, and to be strengthened. Through the quiet hour breathes the worship of ages, the cathedral music of history. 3 unseen guests attend, faith, hope, and love. Let our hearts prepare them place. I'm so pleased to be here and to be allowed, actually, and invited to speak in the area of leadership and spirituality, because often we feel that, in fact, it's spirituality which is our secret weapon, which is the root. This morning, Mr. Khenpa said, it is the root and it is the fruit. And we see that everywhere. So the organization that I began is working to end torture as an investigative tool. And many people often feel that, it's hopeless and it's so difficult. But what we know is that it is possible. And the reason is because of the ways and the things that we've learned from so many of our spiritual teachers from all over the world. One of the most important people who came to me was even back in the 90s when I was working in Cambodia. And at the time, I was working also building the legal system. But on Sundays, I would go to Missionaries of Charity, which was started by Mother Teresa's organization. Inside Cambodia was an orphanage. And when I had human rights concerns, I remember one time I was being threatened by police officers, and they were saying, you can't do this, we can't do that. And I spoke with people in the UN where I worked. I spoke with other lawyers, and they gave me advice like, do this, do that, do this. But none of it really seemed to work. And I remember one day going and I spoke with Sister Rose, and I said, oh my gosh, this human rights work, we're trying to stop people from being tortured and building this legal system, and sometimes I really don't know what to do. What advice can you give me? And I remember she stopped and she paused and she looked at me and she said, Karen, what you have to remember is that when you're dealing with police officers who might be torturing, when you're dealing with judges or prosecutors or whoever you're dealing with in the system, you must find the Christ or you must find the Buddha in each person. Because she really believed in the power of transformative love, and that through that we could transform. And what I understood and learned is that I took her wisdom and her words back into the prisons with me, back into the work that we did, and saw that in every way it began to transform the work. In every place that we have been, I've realized that I am trained as a lawyer, and so many people often think that what we do is we're going in and we're training on the law, we're building legal infrastructure. And in a very technical way, we are training in the law, we're building infrastructure, we're providing lawyers at an early stage. And at the same time, what's really happening is that I see that it's a spiritual journey, and it is a spiritual connection that we have that shifts and transforms. So we work with police officers, and I even remember one of my first experiences in training police officers, even back in the 90s, where at the time I was trained myself as a lawyer. Okay, when you talk to police officers, you must tell them this is the law. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But what I realized is that actually that wasn't really seeming to work either. But what did work is we constructed another method where we began with, what are your values? Why did you become a police officer? And these are actually the same police officers who were torturing people. But while we said, why did you become a police officer? Most of them stopped for a moment and came into their deeper values and said, the reason I became a police officer is because what happened under the Khmer Rouge was terrible, and so many people were killed and tortured, and we want to move forward into the future. And that's why I became a police officer. So what we would do is we would talk about their values, but then look at the ways that what they were doing in their current practice of continuing to torture people was inconsistent with how they were moving forward. So we would actually bring out signs of things that they said they want to move away from the past in Tuol Sleng, where it said, brother, don't you dare tell a lie or you will receive this many lashes, where people were being tortured. And they said, we want to move forward. But as they became more aware of, I think the question was last night as we were watching the dance, who are you? Who are you? And who do you want to become? They began to look deeper into how their values could be reconciled with what they were. And so for International Bridges of Justice, what I see is that it is really the approach to so many of the courageous defenders on the ground and their spirituality that has made the difference. There is something with the Shambhala warriors. They said that when the Shambhala warriors were brought together at their last rite of initiation before they went into the world to save the world, they were given sometimes one of their last lessons. And they were told, you must go into the very corridors of power, and you must bring with you your 2 secret weapons. And these weapons were compassion and interconnectedness. And what I've experienced in my own world and in my own work is that compassion and interconnectedness are truly the tools and the gifts, almost of magic, which can and have transformed in so many different ways. I've looked at it even from the perspective of not only these are tools that we could use, so in that way it's like the fruit of spirituality, but it's also the root of what makes us who we are. I was reading this morning about Gandhi, and my son and I had the pleasure of going to the Gandhi Museum. And I remember a very long time ago I read something, and I went back on the internet yesterday to look at it, and saw that Gandhi was once asked, do you do this humanitarian work purely, do you do the work you do purely for humanitarian reasons? And I thought his response was really interesting, because he said, in relation to the question, do you do this for purely humanitarian reasons? Not at all. He says, I am here to serve no one but myself, to find my own liberation. He believed that in the service of what he called, in the service of these village people, he said, I find my own liberation. Because he said, India's transformation is my transformation. And everywhere in our work, we have seen that this is true. Many years ago, I visited and worked with a man from Vietnam who worked with children from safe houses. And I saw this yesterday too, with the group that's doing work on the environment, where they're, the rag pickers or people who work with picking out trash. They're often the kids who people were like, oh my gosh, we're not sure that we want them talking to us because they'll pickpocket us or do whatever. But what I thought was amazing is that when I went to them, they were in safe houses, but they were so amazing together. They would sing songs, they were working cooperatively. And I said to this guy, oh my gosh, you're amazing. The work that you do is so beautiful, how you've brought these children together. And he said, I have to tell you that it's not for the children. And he told me the story of the fact that he used to be a heroin addict. He said he was on the streets one day. He was in and out of prison himself. But one day he sat there and he saw a little boy being picked up by the police for stealing some eggs to eat. And he said, oh my gosh, that's wrong. And he looked at his friend, who was also another person who had been in and out of prison, and said, it's okay, we're adults, that we go to prison for things that we do that are not right. But it's not right that children are going into I will finish the story later.
So we've just heard Reverend Karen say, and we will have an opportunity, I believe each of the panelists, after they make their opening remarks of about 7 minutes, then we'll have discussion. So please, dear friends, keep your questions and comments ready, and you must be having paper and pen so you can kindly note down, and whenever you want to address the panelists at that time, you could do it to either a particular person of the panel or collectively. I'd now like to invite Professor Akhtarul Wase. Professor Akhtarul Wase is a very distinguished scholar, specializing in Islamic studies. He's also very well known in the interfaith movement. He has worked in a cross-section of issues relating from human rights to HIV/AIDS and to promoting interfaith harmony. So from the Jamia Millia Islamia, a very well-known university of the city of Delhi. So may I invite Professor Wase, please. Yeah, as you feel, though you have the mic, but wish to.
Peace and greetings from the Muslim community in this holy month of Ramzan, which is also the month of Quran. Quran, the book which gives us an essence of spirituality, which is more interested in spiritual elevation than rituals. And first of all, at the very outset, I must be grateful to Mr. Shiv, Madam Ishwaran, and their colleagues for giving me this opportunity to be with you this morning. And I must congratulate you for choosing Delhi for this summit for life and of life, because Delhi, or the NCR, which we call National Capital Region of Delhi, is basically a city or a region where we are having almost 22 Muslim saints buried, and they are all were the spiritual leaders of their time. And they were having basically an understanding of the mankind without having any difference on the basis of religion, caste or creed. That's the essence of the religion. As well as another thing from the Islamic perspective, which I would like to share with you, is that Islam basically and mainly emphasizing only two things: obligations to God and obligations to human being. Huququllah and Huququl Ibad. These are the two pillars of Islam's teachings. And if we are following that, the Muslims are following that, then there will be no conflict. Another thing which I would like to submit with the young friends, that to celebrate commonalities is not something very amazing. But if you can celebrate, if you are preparing yourself to celebrating your diversities, your differences, that's the basic thing. And in a global village where we are now living, we are bound to be, whether we like it or not, to be dependent on each other. And in that situation, we should not forget one thing, that young minds are always feeling puzzled that why there are so many religions and religious differences in this world. Don't forget one thing, that religious pluralism is here in our global village or in this on this earth is just because of the design, desire and will of God. And therefore, whatever has been decided, whatever has been designed by God, we should respect that and we should accept that. That's another thing. Another thing which I would like to share with you, that we are living, and I am grateful and I must congratulate once again the organizers, particularly Mr. Shiv Khemka and his team, for organizing such a group and groups around the globe at a time when we are having more commercialization of even religion. Market forces are not dominating only the industrial units. They are not owning now the educational institutions. They have not only grabbed the health sector, but also religious domain is also under them, and they have made religion a commercial commodity. That's basically a thing where this is a great thing that this summit has been called, this program is organized. Friends, mission, you must be man of mission, not man of commission. That's the basic thing we should understand. Another thing is that whether, again I would like to say, whether we like it or not, we are dependent on each other now. And in that situation, my submission to the young people, because you are the custodian of future, our future belongs to you. I will request you, I will earnestly submit to you that you should give a thought to one thing, that a time has come when we should fight against such ills and evils. Those are universally negatively affecting every human being. For example, disease, illiteracy, drug trafficking, and such type of evils are not recognizing the religion or the religions. Therefore, whether whatever may be our religion, what may be our faith, what may be our leanings, spiritual leanings, we should come forward. We should form a united front and fight against all these things. We should have a common minimum program, and if we can do that, that can be done on the basis of one thing. What is that? That is that we should accept that religious differences will remain there. Not only inter-religious, even the intra-religious differences are there in every religion. Therefore, you have to survive with that, and respecting your differences and right to differ each other, please come, have a common minimum program against all such type ills and evils, and that can be based on spirituality which emanates, which comes basically from the healthy values of every religion. No religion is against spirituality. Whether you are willing to that or not, that will decide the fate of the mankind in the days to come. And then, if you will decide accordingly, and you will have that type of alliance and a common minimum program, a common struggle, then this world will become worthy to live with peace, prosperity for the sons and daughters of Adam who was exiled from paradise, and this world will become another paradise. Thank you.
Okay, right there.
Thank you very much, Professor Vase. You have also very cogently underscored a whole range of issues that are to be addressed if you really want to have the betterment of the world, as Madam Reverend Karen Say also had mentioned, that unless and until we are outward looking, we are able to understand and appreciate the world around us, we will not perhaps be able to find solutions, remedies to the ills that are afflicting the large mass of humankind. I'd now like to invite our distinguished friend from the Jewish community, Rabbi Micah Bodenheimer. He's, I'm sure, got over the jet lag. You've taken a long journey, long flight to India, Delhi. But I'll just say briefly that Rabbi Micah, he's the founder director of the Sevel Bezedek, correct? And he'll be also speaking to us the work that is done from his platform of service and learning with the impoverished and the marginalized sections of the society. So over to Bodenheimer.
So by now it's a tradition to come up here. I don't want to break the tradition. So thank you very, very much, Mr. Shiv and Mrs. Gowrie, for allowing me to come. I had a great teacher. His name is Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. I also learned from many other traditions and was inspired by people from other traditions as well. But my main teacher was Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach. He used to begin before he would teach by singing a song. So I thought maybe if we could sing together just for 30 seconds. So I'll sing this song. Da 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 da. I da 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 I da 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 I da da da. I da 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 da. I da 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 da. I da 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 So the first thing I wanted to say is that one of the things that I think exemplifies the Jewish tradition, other traditions I'm sure as well, but I think it's very important for me, from my understanding of my own tradition, is that the material level, the physical level, the level of the body is of utmost importance. It's not that we don't believe in spiritual realms. We believe in spiritual realms leading all the way up to God's presence and infinite, infinite light that we cannot even imagine. And that light starts to come down, and finally it reaches this physical level where it's completely hidden. And yet this place, hidden for the most part from God's light, is a place that has so much depth in it, so much life in it, that in a way, it's the most important place there is. We have a very, very old saying in something called the Pirkei Avot. It says, it's true, 1 hour in the world to come, in paradise, is worth more than the whole world and all of earthly pleasure. But on the other hand, 1 hour of good deeds and action in this world is worth more than all the eternity of heaven. Because this world really has infinite depths to it. Life has an infinite depths to it. And I want to emphasize that. Perhaps that's the reason that our holy city, I always think about the great religions of Buddhism and Hinduism that were born in the shadow of the Himalayas, which is so far, far up. Our holy city, Jerusalem, is just a little hill. But I think the importance of it is that it's near the Dead Sea. It's a little hill that rises above the Dead Sea, the lowest place on earth, because really our task here on earth is to bring God down, all the way down, into everything, into the physical, into the sexual, into the minute details of everyday life, into our awareness at every moment. And we are very challenged. I don't know how much of you travel, but I travel a lot, and all of a sudden, going from the plane to the terminal, you always have these advertisements in this hall on the way, and they're usually from banks. So there's an advertisement from HSCBS or whatever, HBSC, whatever it is. Whoever shows it says, in the future, and then one I saw that really gave me the chills, it said, in the future, and it shows a fish, and it has, what is that mark on the fish, like those lines where you read it on the cash register? You know what I'm talking about? I wrote it down. What is it? It has, what? Yeah, exactly. A barcode on the fish, and it says, in the future, the food chain and the supply chain will merge. Now that gives me the chills, because there's a sacredness to life that I feel is in danger of being lost in our rush to create a gigantic consumer network. We believe in Judaism, and I believe in other religions too, that every life has in it a holy spark, a divine spark. We can't forget it. We can't just merge ourselves into a network of production and consumption. The market is in danger, I think, of taking us over. Yes, it's important. Market is important. Competition is important. Growth can be important. It's not always important. It can be important. But that market has to serve something much, much larger, which is a common good, which is a goodness of humanity, the spirituality emerging out of religion, but not only, has the capacity to show us this vision and to contain, to use the market, to use ownership in a productive way, but not to make it into everything so that we're hanging on for dear life, human society and culture are hanging on to dear life. And I see this as one of the great challenges of your generation, how to use this great power harnessed by the market and capitalism, but not to be overwhelmed by it, not to allow it to drain our oceans and to kill nature, and to become more important than the task of making sure that every human being has nourishing food to eat and nourishing content for his mind and for his soul. And about leadership, I want to say that in our tradition, leadership comes from caring deeply. When Moses, he was raised in the house of Pharaoh. Okay, so he had all this great privilege and everything. I'm sure that it helped his leadership. But he really became a leader when he went out and saw the suffering of his brothers who were enslaved in Egypt. And you too, you all are the chosen, I understand, chosen for many, many people for the privilege of being here and of learning and studying. And your brothers are the ones that were not chosen. Your brothers are all those that, and leadership really comes out, to me, true leadership, from caring about your community, And in our case, because our community is more and more the entire world, understanding and empathizing with the suffering of every human being and every piece of life on the planet, rejoicing with them, that is to me what can make you a leader. To that extent that you care, that will give you the motivation to really lead. I want to say one thing also about leadership, that it can be very lonely, and it can be very disconcerting, it can be very difficult. You can believe that all the responsibility is on your shoulders, and here too, spirituality I think is really important. I told you about the idea of the light coming down. So there's this image of God sending his light down through the worlds. Each world, it's masked a little bit more. Finally, it comes to the gateway of this world, and it can't come in. It can't come in. There's no room for spirituality, for this light yet in the world, in this massive amount. Because God wanted to create a place for us, also an arena for us to work and to live. So it's frozen. The light is frozen. And that's called the firmament. This is an idea found in the Zohar, in the Kabbalah. But then through our work, through the warmth and the heat of our compassion, of our love, of our devotion, our prayer, we can little by little melt some of that light. And why is that an important image for me? It's an important image because what it says is our effort on the one hand is important. The light is melted by our effort. The light is melted by our effort. But on the other hand, what comes into the world is not commensurate with our effort. It's not one-on-one. It's not measure for measure. That light that comes in is infinite. We don't know what our efforts are going to do. All we can do is make our efforts. The result is not linear, and we know this now also in complexity science, that the world does not work in a linear way. So all we have to do is to do our best, to do the best we can, and to have warmth in our heart, to melt that light and have it come in, and we don't even know how deeply we can affect and what kind of chain of cause and effect we can begin. Thank you.
Right shot. Right shot.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Oppenheimer, for your brilliant exposition on the descent of the light and how we can use spirituality to turn around the market forces for the betterment of the world. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'd now like to invite Madam Nitya Menon, who's an educationist, and she has a special gift for introducing us to the Bhagavad Gita and the Vedanta. And she says that I just want to be a nobody. I don't want to be introduced like an expert or anybody who's going to solve your leadership problems, but just as a good human being who has done work on the subject of spirituality and worked with children. So I'm very happy that Madam Menon is here with us from Bangalore to share her views on what spirituality is all about.
Now, blending
At the outset, I would like to thank Mr. Shukrin for his hospitality
Abhini.
and Mrs. Gauri Ishwaran for having called me here to share my notes on the Indian spiritual tradition. I think at a forum like this, where we have introduced the word spiritual, indicates an unsaid harmony, for we have come to a stage where we can link our hands through a higher dimension of a being, of our being, that is the spiritual. I'm born in India, and up till the age of 21, having been part of Macaulay's system of education, I had no exposure to the rich culture of my own land. I was forced by very prudish and puritanical parents to sit for the Indian Administrative Service exams, which I walked out of after having heard a nuclear scientist and an avowed Vedantin speak on the inner possibilities of man. India has a very special identity, that of being a spiritual country. And that is because of her preoccupation with the spirit and her efforts to bring down the verities of the spirit into man's normative life. We have, both from the historic and the ahistoric dimensions, examples of leadership such as Krishna, Rama, Gautama the Buddha, Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, Guru Nanak. In the Middle Ages, the great analytical philosophers of South India like Shankaracharya, Ramanujacharya, Madhvacharya, Vallabhacharya, and Nimbarkacharya. We have, for ready reference, people who have brought into our lives powerfully the soul force like Gandhi, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, etc. What is so compellingly powerful about their lives and examples are that they have been able, the mark of true leadership, they have been able to penetrate the psyche of the human race. The great intellectual civilization of Greece, the Mesopotamian civilization, the occult civilization of the Egyptians, the powerful, mighty civilization of the Romans, the Chinese, with their otherness, have all lived, flowered, and disappeared. But the Indian civilization and its spiritual culture continues to be topical, living, and of universal relevance even today. It is because not only have we admitted the evolution of man socially, but also spiritually. A great master of the 20th century said so rightly, all problems of existence are problems of harmony. India, during 10,000 years ago, even before the river Saraswati died, had discovered that the secret key to this harmony of the body, mind, and spirit lay in the spiritual dimension. Having discovered it, her efforts were not to isolate it onto the peaks and remain at the peaks of the Himalayas, but bring it down to the plains, and organize society in a way where all the social forms, be it art, education, culture, literature, music, dance, like what we witnessed yesterday, were gateways, many gateways open to the infinite. Spirituality is the master key of the Indian mind. The touch of the infinite is native to it. But we did not stop with this. We emphasize the fact that the infinite is not just infinite in a sense, but infinite in its possibilities and expressions. Today, where we have elevated science into a cult, which worships materialism as a deity, we are suffocated by the malfeasance that we see permeating the entire strata of society. And we are looking out for solutions other than using the same old tools. We are looking out to solve problems in a new way, which we call is the birth of a new perspective. The perspective that we lack is that of the spiritual. Since our training and education has been more Occidental, if you divide the globe, the Occident gives us a sense of purpose, and the Orient, the sense of the whole. The challenge for today's leadership, the challenge for those who are aspiring to bring about a radical change in our lifestyle, rather use our life, use our capacities and capabilities to serve life and not life serve us. Such leaders have to see that this balance of the whole and the sense of purpose has to be fused together. That is the challenge of today's leadership, and I think the answers lie in at least a workable study of the spiritual source books that the ancient traditions of humankind has given us. Thank you.
Madam Nitya Menon, thank you very much for sharing some insights on how the values espoused by the great spiritual figures, spiritual luminaries like Krishna, Rama, Buddha, Jesus Christ, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, Guru Nanak, and many other important spiritual luminaries, and the present-day leaders like Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela can help us to understand what true leadership is all about. And I believe that her plea for a new perspective is truly valid and requires us to ponder over. For my part, I believe that a new life is stirring within all the peoples of the world. But perhaps most of us have not been able to perceive it. And my own value system tells me that civilization is moving forward. But the crisis that we are confronting today is a crisis of profound transformation. And just by way of illustration, because many of the things that may have happened in the past have no reference point to what's happening today. I mean, just take you back a few decades. When the radio was invented, to reach a population of 50 million, it took about 38 years. When the television was invented, to reach that same population of about 50 million, it took 13 to 14 years. When the internet came into the public domain, to reach that population of 50 million, it took less than 4 years. And today in this world of mobile phones, smartphones, iPads, iPods, I mean, you know what multiple revolutions that we are going through. So this ability to communicate at the speed of light and travel at the speed of sound has thrown up a whole lot of challenges on the meaning of leadership. And listening to Mr. Shiv Khemka, who's a very broad-based vision, where he could see the whole world as a common homeland and look at all the spiritual values, the religious systems that are part of our heritage. How can we utilize this very wonderful spiritual force in becoming true leaders? And he said that all of you here, the young friends, are chosen ones. So I believe we have, yes, so I was just sharing my bit a little bit. And I feel that we have to be optimistic. We have to be convinced, first of all, that the power of altruism is real. And we have to believe that true leadership will come about in the collective leadership that we can provide. The ability to communicate with each other, the ability to respect each other, to look upon each other with dignity, in spite of all our diversity, in spite of all our differences, will help us to move forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished friends, and my young friends who are here from some 22 different countries, the floor is now open. Please feel free to ask your questions, be specific, or make some comments, or ask for some clarifications if you feel. And we have, I think, the next 15 to 20 minutes for that. So once again, I'm grateful to all our panelists, Reverend Karen Say, Professor Akhtarul Wase, Rabbi Micah Ordenheimer, Madam Nitya Menon, for their presentations.
Good evening.
Yes.
Thank you for speaking with us. My question is addressed particularly to Nitya ji. I was wondering, based on the Mahabharata, who in your opinion has been more of a leader to us? Was it the man behind the execution or the man behind the idea? Was it Arjun or Krishna who had more of a leadership role to play?
Both. Actually, Krishna would be the leader. Arjuna represents the average man of the time. He excelled in all his administrative and arts of warfare. However, in the most challenging crisis, he was faced with the most challenging job he had to do as a leader, there was a complete psychological collapse. And it was then that Krishna, the leader, he was never about control. As the whole allegory of as the whole symbol of the chariot shows, he was just a driver sitting and almost whispering into the ears of Arjuna who sat above him. That's about leadership, making you feel that you have done the job and not he. Many times during the war, when Arjuna refused to take up his bow and kill his guru, his grandfather, Bhishma, Krishna threatened to act in the war. He also showed Arjuna that he could destroy the whole world. He had the power and capacity, let us put it that way. But definitely it was Krishna who was the teacher and the leader there, not Arjuna. Like I would say to Marshall McLuhan, the great communication man, says, we are all crew on Spaceship Earth. We are not passengers. And a true leader is about helping the other not feel like a passenger. Thank you.
Good morning. Ms. Karen, we were all really enjoying your story. I would request you to please complete it.
Sorry. I'm obviously Chinese and very Asian, so I have to follow rules.
Yeah.
I don't remember where I was, but basically, the Vietnamese man said to me, I said, this is so amazing what you're doing in the safe houses. You've transformed these children. They used to pickpocket people, and now they've come together as community. You've done so much, and I thanked him for transforming these communities. And he said, no. He said, you see, I thought that I was going to transform their lives. But I used to be a heroin addict, and now I'm a different person. He says, in doing the work that I did, in giving myself up to the greater whole, I myself have become transformed. And I realize that in our own lives, that we sometimes say, oh my gosh, do I have time to do this good work? Do I do this? I'm doing it for others. In fact, we are doing it for others, but we're doing it for the world, and also we ourselves have the ability to transform ourselves and will be transformed in the process of giving ourselves to others. So, thank you.
My question is for Mr. Vase. You talked about accepting God's design, and then you talked about the evils in the world and the ills that we face it. But how would you reconcile the fact that the evils in the world as well as the ills are part of God's design?
Yeah, you mentioned about God's design. There is a spiritual design to everything that's happening. But in this design, there is also evil. So how do you reconcile things that are not good? Are they also part of the divine design?
God has given you God has given you wisdom. And with the wisdom, you can decide your own fate. And another thing, that there is, in Quran, it has been said, La ikraha fid deen. There is no compulsion in religion. And therefore, you are free to opt your own way, to find out your own way. And therefore, when I am telling you that there is this all religious diversity or religious pluralism is because of the design, desire and will of God. It means that gives you that freedom, that which path you want to choose. You have to become responsible for that. And therefore, as far as the evil is concerned, we have to fight the evils also. And you go through the life of the great men, spiritual men, prophets, apostles, the other gurus, for example. The names were referred by Madam Menon and other panelists. You go through the life. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, had said that whatever you like for yourself, you should like for the others. That's basically the motto of one's life. And therefore, if you will have this type of motto, then probably you can be in a better position to fight all evils. But if you will be selfish, you will think only for yourself, then you will always be not only yourself in trouble, but all of your associates and fellow human beings will always be in trouble. That should be, we should understand that.
Yeah. Good morning. I'm an educator. This is to all the panelists. It's all fine, sir, when we talk at this level. How do we as educators, in an information-rich world where they are barraged by various images, whether it is the Arab-Israeli conflict or the other issues which we see, how do we get our youngsters, the students, understand the value of religion, spirituality, and make them realize its importance in their day-to-day life, where they're fundamentally, the moment we talk about anything of this nature, there is a wall of resistance. Thank you.
Well, I'll be happy to respond to this. First of all, being a member of the Baha'i community, from the very beginning, we teach our children that there are two forces that are very vital for the march of civilization. One is the force of science and technology, and the other is the force of religion and spirituality. Today, to a great extent, the crises that we are experiencing in life is because there is a chasm, there is a disjunct. But as human beings begin to realize that the complementarity of these two forces, the coordination and collaboration of these two forces can help us solve our problems, then we will begin to appreciate the true nature of collective leadership. Because religion as a system of knowledge must complement the other system of knowledge called science. The methods and the processes that science has developed are extremely valid, similar to what religion has given us in helping us discover who we are and what is our role as human beings in the progress of society and civilization as we know it. So for Baha'is, we believe that this period of transition is actually a wake-up call for humanity to realize that the world is our common homeland, and all these wonderful gifts that we have received, both from the world of science and religion, are designed to help us reach to a new level of maturity. And unfortunately, today, the adolescent form of behavior and distortions and superstitions that have crept into religion have brought a lot of problems. At the same time, science too has been misutilized. The fruits of science and technology, were these to be used to positive ends, can help us solve our problems. So I believe that as educators, we have this tremendous role to communicate to our young people that these two forces or systems of knowledge are not meant to be in conflict with each other. They are supposed to complement and coordinate. And when it is done, you will see the results will be light upon light. Yes, Rabbi.
If I could also jump in, there was a debate I recently read between Christopher Hitchens, who was a great atheist, I don't know if you heard of him, and Tony Blair was taking the side of religion. And Christopher Hitchens kept on pointing out all the problems that have been caused by religion. And Tony Blair didn't say this, but I wish he had said this, that the desire for human beings to produce food and to have a good house and good home, everything to do with worldly things and economics probably causes even more wars, the competition between that, than religion does. That doesn't mean we're going to stop trying to grow food. It simply means we have to do it better. Religion or spirituality is a deep, deep need. The longing for meaning, the longing for life beyond our own immediate life. That's a deep, deep human need. And we have to recognize that. And I think that the way to educate children and teenagers about that is to use the lives of the great religious and spiritual figures and the great, amazing, sometimes hilarious and very inspiring stories. And I think that you can work from those stories and from the great texts that exist to show how this really speaks to deep, deep-seated longings among many, many human beings.
Yes, I would like to say only one thing, that Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, the great founder of the first ever secular institution of secular education in the Islamic world, had said, Quran is the word of God, nature is the work of God, and there cannot be any conflict between the word and work of God. One thing is that. Another thing, as far as science and religion are concerned, we should not forget, religion tells us, science tells us what is in nature, and religion tells us why is that so, and they should supplement, they should complement, they should bring mankind together. And finally, I would like to say, religion is not, the true religion cannot be blamed for any conflict. And if I will again say, why the First World War and Second World War were fought? They were not between the two religions, but between the co-religionists. So therefore, religion is always not being made responsible for all these type of conflicts. We should understand, and in that perspective, we should think about all these matters.
Can I just make a comment?
It's only through educating the kids gradedly, because evolution is a tardy process, and therefore you expose them to this dimension of life through education. It has to be part of a national curriculum. We study comparative religion, etc. in the universities in the West, but not in India. We hardly have a chair of philosophy in any university, spiritual philosophy. And also have little workshops included so that we ask ourselves the fundamental question, who am I? We all have a common name, I. I'm Nitya, I'm a Hindu, I'm a so-and-so, I'm a this thing. But the root he gives, and these things, this little thing will, allow us to, because the universe is a variable, we all are variables, it will allow us the freedom and a Catholic spirit to develop in children, a spirit of inquiry, because we are nature's thinkers.
Yeah, just a small comment, and to build upon what has just been said. I'm drawing this from our discussion early in the morning, when Professor Vasi had mentioned this very interesting fact, saying that science and technology, like you said, it's sort of helping in the progress of the world, but had also caused Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Similarly, religion can be used both ways. It really depends on the wisdom of the person or the individual on what way do you want to use it. This wisdom, which the leadership, what we're talking about, needs that wisdom, comes from spirituality. That's it.
Good morning, I'm Chandrika, and my question is about, so we've been talking about leadership a lot, and leaders need a reservoir of inner resources they need to build so they can call upon it any time when they face conflict or challenges. So what are some of the things we can do in our daily lives to build these inner resources so that we can stay true to ourselves come what may?
Yes.
And this is anybody, maybe Ms. Karen, you can start, but this is open for all the panelists.
Specifically, I mean, it was more of a comment or question.
It's a question. Like what can we do
what we should do in terms of
to build these
action on the ground?
Mm-hmm.
I would say I have two practical suggestions. One is that I think young leaders and leaders in general think that they have to know everything. And really, as important as knowing is, you know, we have in the Garden of Eden, we have the tree of knowledge and the tree of life. The tree of life is beyond knowing. So I think that sometimes at any moment when you feel that anxiety creeping up, what should I do, what can I do, to open yourself up to not knowing and to knowing that you really don't know, but opening it up, you know, opening it upwards, that not knowing. And the other thing that for me is very vital is just to be able to pray in your very own words, whatever your feelings are, whatever you need at any moment, to whatever you want to call God or the universe or whatever, to put in your own words and to express, you know, from the depths of your heart what your pain is, what you need, and to feel the comfort of that expression. I found that very, very important in my own life.
And I will just add that you should be careful in your actions, observations, as well as caring to others.
And I would also say one of the things as the rabbi did is to sing, to pray, to chant, to whatever you do. You see, I'm hoping no one hears me as I'm walking down, coming here, but I also sing all the time, even though I don't have a very necessarily good voice. So part of it is just whatever vibration we have to bring it on. I also, for myself, before I wake up in the morning, right as I'm waking up, and my eyes are just about to flutter, I try and think about all the things that I'm grateful for in every way. And part of it, too, is that I think that, and I know that all of you are doing great work and looking at, you know, how your 4 projects, how are we going to really make this happen? And it is heroic and fantastic, and you will be frustrated. There are just times in that heroic journey where you will feel like you are absolutely losing hope. And for me, too, it's important to remember that, I think Václav Havel said this, first of all, consciousness precedes matter, and not the other way around. And also at the same time, sometimes it's not that we do things because they are obviously headed for success, but because they are good. And that we can have a greater vision of wanting to co-create with Spirit to bring us in prophetic imagination to co-creating a better world. And it won't always be easy. We may not always even see or get affirmation from the world for what we are doing, and yet we do it because it is right, it is good, and we can come back to our own understanding, affirmation of what it is.
Yeah, okay, we have,
she would like to also say, just to introspect up until that point where we realize, and we will, because like Confucius says so beautifully, listen to the tones of your heart. And till the point where we understand that we are part of a huge world process and we don't hold patents here.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. There's a person at the back. Okay, first it was, all right.
Good morning. My question is that while I understand that all the religions, they advocate benevolence and compassion, but then as one of the panelists just mentioned, that often it so happens these days that different factions have come up in religions which tend to advocate different ideologies, and also considering that there are several atrocities nowadays in the name of religion which actually erodes the true vision and what religion and spirituality actually means. So how can we possibly check that? Just to ensure that we're not having a falsified vision of what it actually entails.
Yeah, I mean, the impact. All right.
I think because there are 2 aspects to religion, my child, and that's one is a temporary aspect relevant to the age and time. And one is the permanent values which all the religious traditions carry. If we were to assess it in terms of those permanent values, these external discrepancies and distortions would not happen.
Yes, these social aberrations.
We have to recognize that that human beings, hopefully, and this is something we believe deeply in Judaism and I think in other religions too, human beings have the capacity to evolve and to transform. And the religions themselves also have to go through transformation. But they can't go through transformation just by being attacked or by being wiped out. It has to be an internal process that's connected to what's going on outside. So I think in every one of the religions, you see both fundamentalist aspects, and sometimes these are very destructive, although they may also be holding on to certain precious kernels, but they have also destructive effects. And you see people who are flowering in a new way that can connect them while keeping their own identity, can also connect them to other religions. And this evolution is something that we have to believe in, and we have to strengthen.
Yeah, so if you appreciate the historical paradigm of the evolution, then religion and spirituality also has to evolve with the times. And this too, please, I don't want to interrupt you.
Good morning. My name is Sanya. What I want from you is an opinion on a very personal belief that I've come to hold in the last year and a half that I've started foraying into this area of spirituality and exploring what it means personally to me. And the way I see it, I see religion and spirituality as two very, very distinct things which are separate from each other. And I've always thought that religion is a way to spirituality, and it is the means to an end, and it is this kind of search for oneself that every religion kind of advocates and just takes different paths. Like the stupidest analogy would be like, it's all automobiles, but we just call our cars different names, kind of thing. It takes us the same place. That's where we want to go. But do you think that I just have this increasing feeling every day that we've got so caught up in the means that most of us never reach the end to which the means kind of try to lead us. And in that way, isn't religion now, I don't have any problem with religion. I am a very religious and spiritual person. But I do think that its interpretation in this day and age, isn't it impeding the purpose for which we have it?
Just, I would like to say that that's a very serious problem, because the interpretations are creating sometime more havoc than they are resolving the problems. And they are answering the very disturbing issues. That's the problem. So therefore, we should try to go directly to the religious text, for example, and have a direct access and try to understand ourselves. Don't rely on many interpretations, because many interpretations can be very misleading. And another thing is, being a student of religion, I would like to submit that every text should try to be understood in the proper context in which that was revealed to the mankind, or that was said by a spiritual guru, Payghambar, Rasul, or the Prophet. Or that should be basic thing. Otherwise, there will always be disputes, there will be always discord, and that's the problem here. So I agree with you that that should be, but if you will have a direct access and direct understanding, because all people are having a wisdom, and therefore it has been said that everybody, there should not be a middleman between God and the mankind.
Yeah, thank you very much. We have Mr. Khemka, our last intervention. Yes.
Yes, thank you all very much for some very enlightening comments. I want to ask you a question, which I feel people have an answer to, but I want your opinions on this question. Can one be a great leader without spirituality?
No.
And without religion, and why?
I saw an interview of Shah Rukh Khan, and he came through as such an honest man. When he was asked to join politics, he said, I can't. I'm not yet ready to be a leader because I'm still selfish. It is only through the spiritual dimension that we transcend the ego, which suffocates us, and can be of selfless service and serve life rather than be served by life.
Sir, a leader can only be a person who is selfless, who thinks not about himself but for all others. That's basically the quality of a leader. And therefore, an spirituality, and I will again say religion, because I do not separate religion from spirituality. Because my understanding is that religious is a physical manifestation and spirituality is basically the soul, or in Mr. Shiv Khemka's words, that is the root and finally fruit. So therefore, you must be spiritual, and you can only be spiritual once you are neither commercial nor self-centered, and or selfishness is more harmful than to be self-centered. So therefore, even if you should not be self-centered. So therefore, and as I was telling you just before, a few minutes before, Muhammad, peace be upon him, had said that a leader must have the quality, not only the leader, everybody must have the quality that whatever he or she is considering better or good for himself or herself should consider it for others also. So that is basically the essence of to be a leader, and without that nobody can be a leader. And as religion is misused, so is the word and institution of leadership, because that is also grabbed and hijacked by the people of selfish nature.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Rabbi,
there was a Hasidic teacher. Hasidism was kind of like a movement in the 17th, 18th, 19th century, 20th century in Judaism. And someone asked the Rebbe Mikotsk, he was a Hasidic leader, who said, everything you say, everything in the world has a purpose. What's the purpose of atheism? So he said, the purpose of atheism is when you see a poor person, don't say, oh, well, I don't have to help him. God will help him. No, at that moment, you're an atheist. And Rabbi Kook, Rabbi Avram Yitzchak Cohen Kook, one of the great leaders in the early 20th century in Judaism, he was dealing with a lot of secular Jews who were great leaders in building up the nation in this time of great crisis. And he said, you know something? In a certain way, the atheists are right. You know why? Because God does not belong to any category, even the category of existence. So they're right. God doesn't really exist. It doesn't fit into any, even existence is too small and limiting a category. So I would say that you can be a great leader. What do we know? You can be a great leader without any spiritual beliefs. You can be a great leader just because you love justice, just because you love equality, just because you love human beings. Will you have conceived and seen all the possibilities and potential of humanity? No. Can you serve a great purpose? I would say definitely yes.
Madam, would you like to say something? I have a little remark to this. Yes, I believe that one cannot be a good leader without spirituality, because the essential nature of human beings is spiritual. And normally, instead of asking the question, who am I ask myself, what kind of a human being are you? And if you compare a human being to a lamp, and if that lamp does not give light, then of what use is it? In the morning, we are talking about human beings like a mine, and this mine is full of gems of inestimable value. So through education, we begin to discover these hidden gems and talents and potentialities. So if you are going to be a great leader in the years ahead, then always ask yourself the question, what kind of a human being are you? Are you able to inspire trust? Are you able to motivate? Are you able to instill confidence? And do you live by these values? So as we mentioned, that daily we need to pray because we are imperfect human beings. So through prayer, we connect to the divine, we get strengths. Through our actions, we again are able to translate the values that we are willing to live by into action and demonstrate that, yes, we mean what we say. So these are, I think, issues that need to be addressed by us every day. Unfortunately, very little time is given to prayer, meditation, to reflection on our personal thoughts, words, and deeds. And if we are able to take out time every day for these essential activities, I'm sure day by day, we'll be able to bring improvements and make the necessary changes in our lives so that we truly demonstrate the qualities of great leaders.
And I would say the same thing, that I very strongly believe that great leadership is rooted in spirituality. And I'm often sad because I went to Harvard Divinity School, and I know that many leaders from many countries come and they go to the Kennedy School, which is great. They go to the business school, and it's fantastic. But you see, too, that oftentimes when there's democracy, when there's transitions, that it's all focused on the technical skills. And what you see is that if the values are not addressed, if the spirituality is not addressed, that maybe people change power, but at the root, we need to be reflecting on our spiritual values and how we lead in that way. And I've noticed in even our own organization that we don't choose people on spirituality, but when our leaders have come together, I noticed that one person, the guy who came, our fellow from India came, and he's a Hindu, and he practiced it every morning. And our Cambodian leader came, and he was Buddhist, and he was a Buddhist monk for 14 years, so he brought everyone in chanting and prayer. And then our leader from Zimbabwe is Christian, and he led everyone in prayer in the morning. So it wasn't that it was any one particular religion, but it was that everyone brought their spirituality to their leadership, and it was what allowed them to have prophetic imagination everywhere.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, I'm not on the panel, but it's on, I think.
Yeah, it's on.
I certainly want to add another dimension, which is not just look at, again, you've used the words respect and interconnectedness and so on, but I think we need to look beyond the human race. I think the respect for other forms of life. When you look at the whales, the elephants, even the bees, people might say this true meaning of altruism is actually apparent. They actually sacrifice their lives for the benefit of the population of that species. So people might say, well, it's already in the nature. So it's not as if it's something that they have learned. But I think human beings, if they can really begin to appreciate this interconnectedness beyond the human race and begin to build a sense of tolerance in spite of our differences, then I think the kind of richness we have in biodiversity, I think that can play up in our own lives as well. So tolerance, yes, but a very strong sense of what is right and wrong, that is also apparent. You can't just tolerate everything. But I think the question that Chandrika raised about leadership, how do we build our inner resources? A much more interdisciplinary approach to addressing problems, learning that there are very complex issues, what are called wicked problems, no easy solutions, but I think the more we are aware, I think there's a greater likelihood that we'll be able to address these problems.
That's a great summing up.
I'd like to thank all the panelists today for an extremely enriching and inspiring session that has left us with so much to think about. TGELF would now like to present a token of their appreciation to all our panelists.